So the labor market is getting worse and worse with numbers that are revised down of and jobs that literally don't exist. So let's understand what's happening in the US and a few movements that may affect your portfolio. So this is coming from the ADP, so the automatic data processing for private employment. Basically, it's a double bad news because not only the private employment fell 32,000 jobs in September, but the expectation was 51,000 plus. So it was actually 32,000 minus, which is a huge delta. But not only that, August was revised down. So they actually had a 54,000 count, and all of a sudden it fell to minus 3,000. So and as this post says, this rarely happens outside of recession. So we see more and more of those signs into the real economy. But the interesting part is that the financial markets are actually just fine. So bad news is, as usual, good news, right? Whatever happens, you're just bullish. There's a whole meme over there. We talk a lot about that on Twitter because they're not really related at all. It's all about liquidity. It's all about refinancing and the repo markets, and we discuss a lot about that. So if you're interested in monetary mechanics, macro, how that affect Bitcoin prices, we just launched at Substack, so you can read the Bitcoin intelligence report over there as well. So we now split that in 3 different reports, so pretty digestible, so you have actionable information on what to do with the account. So all links are on the description below. You can try it out for 7 days as well. Okay, at no cost. All right. So you've seen this all over the place. So the jobs market is really taking a huge part of the headlines today. But even more interesting is that not only we see a huge problem, and this is the private sector, so this is the private jobs. However, what about the public sector? So as of now, we are talking in the very same time where we have a government shutdown, which may affect almost a million government workers, which could create, you could actually argue that aggregate demand is going to be affected from now on. So a very weak economy is getting weaker and weaker, and this is actually not helping at all. So pretty interesting scenario to watch. But there is a twist. There may be another side of all this, since we do have an administration that not only does not want that to happen under their watch, but also is very focused on national security. So this here, for example, Pentagon pushes to double missile production to prepare for potential conflict with China. As from the Wall Street Journal. So this here shows exactly the big theme that we discuss about in our reports, where we have a deglobalization world going on. So every country is trying to find their weaknesses, especially the United States on that matter, since missiles or drones are produced in China, and you need to make sure to produce that at home at any cost as soon as possible. And this will require a lot of manpower and a lot of energy as well. So there is a whole work in progress going on within the United States. And I found that quite interesting to see that many actually one of the spokespeople of the not only the Pentagon but the Department of Defense said that basically around 600,000 plumbers and electricians are needed, and cannot find them. So this is all about a specific sector, all about national security. What are the actual segments of the economy that the U.S. is going to drive their attention to? If you make the comparison, you actually see that the U.S. and China are becoming more and more alike. So as we said that on our X Spaces yesterday. So if you didn't listen to that, I highly recommend it to do that on your 21st Capital profile. The US is doing China things, and China is doing a lot of US things as well. But here you see clearly how the US is just copying China's process of rebuilding. So shipbuilding is something that the US doesn't do anymore. China masters that. So they need to catch up on that. You see the lack of energy that we might have with AI coming up in basically 3 years. Some estimate that we might have a problem with our power grid in the United States. So all of this will require specific manpower that we are in lack of. And in our belief, this is really where the buck is going. So even though we have a very, very weak labor market, and one might argue that is before Trump, after Trump, it doesn't really matter. So it's all about what the response is going to be, especially on a fiscal dominant regime. So if you have that kind of regime, the stimulus is always going to be the answer. And this is basically you turning on the printer. So interesting scenario. And of course, if you just go to the markets and look at the S&P 500, you just see how that is completely unrelated to the real economy. So you wouldn't say that we have a government shutdown in a corner with a bad revision in the labor market. Everything is good news. It doesn't really matter. Good news is good news. Bad news is good news as well. And markets are going up. And this is liquidity driven. So this is one of the most important points because it also affects Bitcoin. So we have a huge run right now as we speak. Not too huge if you follow Bitcoin for a while, but it has been some time that Bitcoin didn't really respond, even though gold and the S&P went up. Bitcoin was kind of sideways in a pretty strange move, but now it's just picking back up. So let's see how that correlates to the whole thing. If Bitcoin along with gold gets a little bit more of that reserve asset property, but also part of a mix of a risk on assets. So this is why Bitcoin in our view is a very composite kind of asset. Let's see what that leads us, but for sure, interesting times, and happy October. So who knows? Let's see if that's really going to be the case. But liquidity and the plumbing actually supports it for the time being. All right. Hope it was helpful, and see you in the next video.